You just I can't hear you.
Checking 1, 2, 3.
Now I hear you.
All right. Well, as I was saying, this is going to be an amazing episode. We really had a blast with Tawni Michelle. Hang on to your hats, and men, watch your triggers, because we're bringing the spirit of Kali into this conversation. She was really articulate, really powerful, very creative, very open. What a tremendous opportunity to spend an hour with this woman talking about all the different things that came up. You're in for a treat.
Yeah. So subscribe, give us a comment or two, like, whatever, hit that bell, all that stuff, and drink adrenochrome cola and get ready for a fiery ride.
Sis, hallo?
Blijven.
Bestuur zeker wegen dem.
Joh je iets niet, joh.
Two outlaws on the lam, taking the back roads through America.
You can't drink enough coffee for this show.
And now it's time for Monday Madness with the Moped Outlaws, Greg and Mark.
And we're live with another episode of Moped Outlaws, and we have very special guest, Tawni. Is it Michelle?
Tawni Michelle. That's just my middle name.
Ah, that's what you go by, Tawni Michelle. All right.
That's what I get hired for under Tawni Michelle all the time. It sounds stagey. Like it's my real name, but it sounds like a stage name, so I use it.
That's brilliant. Well, you were obviously meant for it.
Thank you.
It's great to be here with you, researching what you're up to, and I've been looking forward to having this conversation with you for a while. I'm excited.
Okay, I'm glad you invited me. I'm excited. You're actually my very first podcast, and I've been wanting to really get into podcasts, so I'm very excited to do this. Thank you for having me.
Well,
got it.
Damn, that's where I'm honored.
Yeah, we are honored. There's so much I'm just inspired by, and I want to get into. I'm going to start here. What I notice when I listen to a lot of your TikToks is a lot of your energy is getting consumed with grappling with incels and boys and
toxic little men.
Yeah. And so there's this thing that happens there where it really eclipses an aspect of yourself that I'd like to know more about, that doesn't have to contend with that. And I think that this is a big part of what's problematic about our culture, is that women are so busy fending off energies that we don't actually get to feel and see and hear from who they really are and what they have to offer beyond their boundary setting. And they're having to do the labor of educating people of how to handle them and how to be in the right relationship with them. So I'm really curious about what it is that brought you to makeup and the theatrical life, and what inspires your creativity.
Okay, so I've always been some of a performer of some sort. I've been a dancer all of my life. I grew up in the musical theater, grew up doing competitive dancing. And that's what brought me to New York. Was I was going to come here to sing and dance and be on the stage. And that's what I still do now in tons of different aspects. As a makeup artist, I've been a makeup artist my entire adult life, and I learned how to do makeup from performing on stage, and that's how I started. And I went to cosmetology school and did all of that stuff. But for a big chunk of my life, makeup was not my number one priority. It was a creative outlet. I was good at it. I made money from it, but my main focus has always been someone in front of the camera as opposed to someone behind the camera. That's just always what it has been. And so right now in the time of my life, I am slowly trying to phase out the makeup part of my life, which I've actually been doing. I've been trying to phase it out for 10 years. It's just I like it. It's just not what I want to do, what I see myself doing. So my most creative outlet is performing and being in front of the camera. So I'm a dancer and I'm a model. I'm with a couple of modeling agencies, and get me in front of a camera, get me in front of a bunch of people. That's where I thrive on so many different levels, not just performing, and obviously on speaking my mind to toxic little men on social media. But what you were saying a minute ago, women have to, for so long, women just have to fend off, you know, this type of berating behavior because it's what women have faced at the hands of toxic men. And just as a preface, because a lot of little angry men always hate this, I know it's not all men. Women know not all men do this. And they are so, not all men, you know, they huff and puff and they get angry, but they never ask themselves, why am I so angry about this?
Right.
What did she say that really triggered me?
Right.
Why am I so fragile about this? It's because you are exhibiting the very behaviors that I am telling the world about, and you don't like that, because actual good men don't have a problem with what I say because they don't exhibit those behaviors. So women had to stifle themselves, make themselves small, make themselves be quiet for men who would do this to them. You're old, you're fat, you're a whore, you're everything. You know, you're everything negative. Everything that's not male is negative. And women just made themselves so small and quiet. And then now, in the time of social media, these women are finding their voices and becoming, I think, who they always were. So I don't think women are hiding. When I'm yelling at somebody in my way, I am showing exactly who I am to these type of people. And it's not limited to just men, but it's mostly men. So I think it's a voice that women are finding.
So, who were some strong women that were showing examples that you were like, oh, I want to be that when you were a young girl, like development ages, 6, 8, 12?
You know, I wish I could say that I've been this way since I was younger. I was not. I was very much like many other young girls and women are raised to be. Like, I wanted to be submissive to men. I wanted to please them in every single way. I wanted to do things for them. Like, my idea was to be a housewife and married, and I thought that was going to be the life I wanted. I remember my Aunt Carol, who I love so much. She's now the matriarch of our family. She would always say, you do not want that. That is something you do not want. Because she was born in like 1949. She's in her 70s right now, and we're very close. She says, you don't want that. You don't know how it really was with these women. These women couldn't go to college. And if they did, it was just until they got married. They couldn't hold credit cards. They couldn't buy anything on their own. They had no options at all. You don't want that. And what happens when these men leave their wives for a younger model? They have nothing. And that's still unfortunately happening today. So most of my adult life, I was that type of woman with my ex-husband. That's what I envisioned myself to be. And that's what he didn't necessarily make me that way. I wanted to be that way. And it wasn't probably until like the last 5 or 6 years that this voice that was inside of me, all the anxiety and frustration and stress that I have just suppressed for years, just started coming up when I'm looking on social media and seeing so many other women with shared problems, shared past abuses, because so many of us, the reason why we're angry is because we faced abuses in our past from men.
So are you sharing that social media was the medium where your eyes started opening up?
Where I would say it was TikTok specifically was, and having shared experiences with other people telling their story, or it's like, oh, I'm feeling this. I'm feeling something. Things that strike my heartstrings, make me feel I'm like, I know what she's feeling. I know what she's talking about. And then more and more women are feeling that. And I feel as a collective, it's what helped bring us, you know, to fruition here on social media. And I remember there were things, you know, there are things in my past that I've always spoke of. I've had abuse in my past. I was with an abusive ex-boyfriend many years ago. As a teenager, I was abused by an older man. Things that I never would ever say to anybody. Like, I spoke of abuses as an adult, but it wasn't until probably 4 or 5 years ago, because of social media, that I finally verbally said out to my mother and to close people that I was abused by this man when I was like 15 years old, and he was like 35. And it was a horrible time. And I felt wrong doing it. And I felt so much guilt and shame for years. And it's like I kind of pinpointed so many different problems that I had in my teenage and early 20s from that one moment that kind of like was a domino effect to other issues that I had. And it took me so long to get out of that. And it wasn't until about 5 years that I went and got therapy for that. And I was able to come out and realize that this was the catalyst of my problems that I had. And this is why I am so vocal and verbal to try to hopefully have other young women avoid these type of things.
You know, we need another word for what that behavior is in men. The word that we use, grooming, is just so benign, and it's actually has this positive connotation as if it's something we're doing for them. And as someone who has a cosmetology license, grooming has a positive thing, right? It's glamming, it's all these other things. So we need a way to label this as what it really is, which is predatory behavior. It's
predatory behavior. It is absolutely predatory behavior. That's exactly what it is.
And unfortunately, a lot of these men are operating from conditioning of not knowing a better way to be. And without justifying incel behavior or little boy behavior, I understand it, because there's this powerful urge that men have to connect, but they don't have the tools. We don't teach them the emotional intelligence and the method by which to create connection and to create two-way communication.
Nor do they seek out therapy, nor do they do anything. No, they know that something is not right, but they don't do anything about it. And then in turn, they blame women around them or in their lives, or the incels feel that they're like we should be obliged to be around them. Like they feel like they're owed something by us. All those issues are horrible for those type of men. They're terrible, and they should absolutely figure out how to solve those problems. But that has nothing to do with women.
Well, and that's why men like me and Greg need to step forward and handle men like that and be a cause in the effect on their life. We need to do that labor as men.
That is exactly what more men have to do, because there are so many men who don't do these horrible things, yet they witness it from all of their friends and family. They witness just casual misogyny, casual whatever it is, and they're silent. Well, I didn't do anything, but you didn't help, so you're complicit, you know?
Yeah. You know what, though? There's a theater here in our community that I'm help out behind the scenes. We just had a HR issue come up with the current production. It's very difficult in the moment to clearly define right and wrong, because one of the people involved has some mental challenges in their character. And unfortunately, these challenges probably had to do with medication not being taken. Things happen. So trying to figure out the right and wrong, and luckily it's behind us now, and I think the right choice was made. The person was released from the production. But in the moment, the past 72 hours, and I've heard this also from people who, like yourself at 15, the cognitive awareness, like you feel something's wrong, but to have that cognitive grounded ability to communicate it effectively is very, very rare. Usually comes years later.
Well, it did came years for me in that situation. So I'll tell you this situation, how this happened. So my friends and I, we were in high school. I was 15. My two other friends were like 16. And we knew of this club, this dance club. So it's like 21 and over that you can like sneak in through the back, like you can jump the fence and sneak in. And we always wanted to go and just dance. Like we didn't have interest in like drinking. We just wanted to dance and feel like we're grown up, or just like teenager stuff, like the regular teenager stuff. And we were able to do it a few times, and it was fun and exciting. And, we're telling all our friends. So it was like a big deal, and we were feeling really cool. And then we did it. The last time we did it, we got caught. Which was quite embarrassing, because they found us in the back and they escorted us through the whole thing. It was just so embarrassing. It was just not something fun. But we didn't want to go home, and so we were waiting outside the club, hanging out kind of to the side. And like my friend, he's like, he smoked cigarettes. I didn't, but he's like, here, take a cigarette and pretend you're smoking, so we look like we're an adult. silly stuff, but so dumb. But then this guy came out from the club, and he said that he saw us get kicked out, which already he knew we were underage already. And he was talking to us, but we were kids, and he was this, adult man who was attractive. So that was like very exciting for us, And so dangerous. He's like, hey, do you guys want to go hang out? We can go to my apartment. And we said yes. So we got into his car and we just went over there, and nothing really happened at all that night, really. But then he got all of our phone numbers, but then he started calling me and not my friends. And then he was telling me things on the phone like, oh, I really like you out of all of your friends. You're the prettiest, saying all these things to me to make me feel like, he was basically saying things like you're different than all the rest, that type of stuff, like you're so much more mature. That's why I don't like those other ones. And so he was predatory on me. He knew exactly what to say to me. I was going through a hard time in my family because my parents were divorced. It was just horrible stuff going on. And he fed right into that. And then we started this kind of like a secret affair. I would go to his house. It'd be very secret. Couldn't tell my family. And he told me, I was so nervous. But he said something to me, and it was only a few months long. And he said something to me like, remember, we can't say anything about this because I almost got in trouble for this before. And then I was like, oh my God. And then I ended it after that. But then I had this for years, just problem after problem with older men and abusive men, one after the other. And I fell into I started to do just horrible things that was out of my character at the time. And it just took me to a really dark place in my teens and early 20s. And I never told anybody about that. I never told my family about that. I never told anybody. I told my family about abuses that I faced as an adult, but never that. I was so embarrassed because I felt like it was my fault because I knew he was older and I still was going with him secretly. I felt like it was my fault. And then after finally 5 or 6 years ago, when I was connecting with other people and I started seeking some therapy, I did some group therapy with a great group. I realized that none of that was my fault. He was the adult in the situation. He knew I was underage. He knew all of us were underage. He started this and he should have been, and I just know that he is the catalyst to all of my issues that I suffered during that time. And probably what's evolved and evoked from me right now.
Your husband, did you meet him before this 5 to 6 year period?
No, we were together.
So you and your husband were creating relationship before this
awakening.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we were. But me and a lot of other women, we like to suffer in silence, suffer alone with things boiling up inside of us, and being able to handle everything. But it started to, come out.
So how did you and your husband learn to keep your partnership and matrimonial relationship as these things are starting to explode out of you?
Well, luckily, with us, it didn't seem to have an effect on us.
That's
together,
right.
Which was actually very different from when I was with my ex-husband, because coming into when I was with my ex-husband, and this is like 15 years ago now, I came to him out of a very physically abusive relationship that for 2 years, I was with a horrible, horrible man that was basically beating me up every single night and forcing himself on me for 2 years. I was in college. It was awful. And I came to him really freshly messed up. And I got together with my ex-husband very, very quickly. It was, that's my mindset. I was with one man to a boyfriend to a husband to, that's just where I was. I felt the most safe because I always imagined that these men are here to save me. So dumb. I hate that. I hate that I had that mentality because they don't. These kind of men don't save you. You save yourself, and.
But I think one of the things Greg is asking is your current relationship, there was a quality to your husband that when you started to actually begin to find your voice and you began to feel more of your own personal agency and power, there was something about him and the way your relationship evolved. And we're curious about what those things looked like and how you navigated that new way of being with them. I
think so. Chris, he's not trying to fix me. And I always felt like so many men were trying to fix me. Like as I was saying before, my ex-husband, when I came to him from an abusive relationship, we had some trouble. We had a lot of trouble. I was having outbursts. I had so much anxiety. I felt like he was doing something shady behind my back because I was in this horrible relationship. So that was a really big deal for a few years with my ex-husband. It took a long time to get that out of my system. But he was always trying to save me and fix me, and that's how I always pictured him. But Chris, he doesn't try to fix me. He doesn't. I'm not dependent on him. I don't feel like I need to run to him to solve my life, and which is a great freedom that I wish I found so much sooner. So, I mean, I see some of these young girls on TikTok that, I mean, God, I wish I had it like that. Like when like my favorite, her name is Drew. Do you know who that is? Mm-hmm. Drew Afwalo. I believe that's how you spell her name. Her and I talk about the same subjects, but she is a massive creator. And the things that she can say to these awful men, I cannot wait to get to that level. She could just rip them apart. But she's in her early 20s or mid 20s. These other people have found their voice so much younger. And I like to think it's because of the shared experiences on social media. I wish I had that.
Well, the thing that I find is like when you're describing her, and even when I first saw you on social media, there was a reflexive idea I had that you're always fire. And therefore, there's always a wall that isn't allowing for that empathetic connection with others where there's give and take.
You mean when you're seeing like me online, like when you see me online?
Right.
Yes, people always think that about me, about other creators similar to me. They think that this is who we are all the time.
Right.
Which is literally, these clips are like a minute long. They're a minute long. Or the comments, some of the comments that I get from these men. Well, first, they always think I'm either a lesbian with 100 cats, or I'm single with 100 cats. And, they just think I'm miserable in my life, sad, no friends, no family. But when they find out that I have a husband or that I have a fantastic life, or when they find out what my job is, they hate all of that. They fall apart. But when they find out I have a husband, they get so upset. Then they would say negative things about him. Oh, I hate to be him. I bet he's a cuck. I bet you yell at him all day. And I'm like, no, bitch, I'm yelling at you. I'm not yelling at him. I'm like, why? He doesn't treat me like a little fucking asshole. He doesn't do what you do. Why would I yell at him? I treat him amazingly because that's how he treats me. He's not a man-child that can't do adult basic tasks in his own home. It's
again, the framework that we're operating from is still centered on these guys and the need for you to respond to that. And I want to dig a little deeper again. And the question I have for you is, what is your experience of you as a dancer, mm-hmm. and what comes alive in you that and how does it feel for you, and what kinds of things does that inhabit your life with? How does your life get, inspired in that arena?
Well, when I perform or if I'm modeling, whatever it is, it's like this outlet that I can release energy from. Like my dance company that I'm a part of, fantastic dance company. We do vernacular solo jazz, Lindy Hop, aerial acrobatics. It's called the Big Apple Lindy Hoppers. It's a swing dance Lindy Hop team. I love it so much. I love them so much. But it's like I look forward to. We have 2 rehearsals a week. In between performances or gigs. And it's like this big release coming back. Because a lot of times I'm at home and I'm making content, either my own personal content or content for other people. And after like calling out bad behavior all day, being able to just release that and just laugh about it, or show my friends, who I have amazing friends, women, men, have a lot of straight friends. Nobody thinks I have straight friends because, these men don't think I have any male friends at all. They think I just yell at every man that walks past me. They think I hate all men. I just hate you. Yeah. I love men. A big majority of my friends are men. I just hate these toxic little fragile ones.
I love that.
But showing people this, or sometimes if I get recognized from my TikTok, which happens sometimes, a lot of times I'll get recognized from women, which is great. Sometimes I'll get recognized from men, which are you a good guy or a bad guy? I don't want one of the bad guys to like run into me. But it's just a really nice outlet to blow off what I just threw into the universe, toward these guys.
God.
So you are working at creating a brand and revenue stream as a social media content creator.
Yeah, I don't think that's not my focus. It's happening. It happens because I am in the Creator Fund. I'm monetized on a couple of social media outlets. But what I've told many people, my followers many times, although I do generate income, a significant portion of the income that I do generate from social media goes into a couple of the charities that I continually support on a monthly basis. So I'm not here just saying rage bait stuff to try to get more views and more money. Everything I'm saying is what I believe. I may take it up to the next level. I may embellish a little bit, but it is ultimately at the core what I believe in. So I donate every single month now for the last 4 years, part of what I make from social media, to Planned Parenthood. And I choose different shelters for children and women of domestic violence. And so that's what it was. So if I could really incite these angry men even more, the more engaging and the more views they have, the more money I could have to donate for these charities and myself, so they're paying me.
They're transmuting that energy into something positive. It's really interesting to see how you're alchemizing all of that into something valuable.
I do have to tell you though, I do get a little joy when I see all my followers go after them. I do. It just really gets me right here.
So I want to ask you, there's an image on the screen with us of a Hindu deity. And do you recognize that deity? Do you know who that is?
It's
Kali.
Kali.
And do you know who Kali is?
Mm-mm.
Got it.
I know Kali, the god, when they referenced it in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
Right. So that's the Hindu god.
She's a goddess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, goddess. So Greg put that there, and it's because it's a symbol of incredibly high energy power of a deity, a female deity, a goddess, but it's also got a destructive nature. Like one of the things that Kali has is a ring of skulls, a necklace of skulls wrapped around her. You can see that there in the image, right?
I do.
And she's usually holding a severed man's head that's bloody and blood dripping out of it.
I like it.
She's got her tongue.
I really like that. That looks like a good costume to be.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
So I call that out, one, because we've got this displayed, and I wanted you to be clear about why it's displayed. And there's something about that energy that is really, really great to experience. And the legend of Kali and the ethos behind it be something for you to really read up on. And I'm severely underqualified to do that for us right now.
Well, I'm very interested in reading up. Actually, I am. That's cool.
Yeah. And one thing I'll say about what I've learned about Kali, she's also, I've been told, one of the most compassionate deities. So her destructiveness comes, what I believe I saw in your post, is tearing down structures that are not in alignment with nature and joy and light. And there's a fierceness that she's surpassing the energy that she's tearing down in order to tear it down. Do you ultimately have a compassion for humanity that is like a hope?
I do. And that's on a big scope. That's basically why I am voicing things from my own personal experiences in calling out bad behavior. Because like I said, it's not limited to just men. I call out bad behavior from women too.
Yes, you do. I've seen that.
But it's mostly men. And because the women I call out women who are pick-me girls, who are full of internalized misogyny that stems from males' behavior that they were accustomed to. So those are the type of women that I call out too. So it just so happens to primarily be men as well. And I wouldn't even have content if these men didn't do things first. You won't really find any video of me just going to a random bro's page and saying horrible things to him. I do responses to their horribleness first. And it's just like, this is like the conversation that me and other female creators, we have had this conversation, because we'll get these men saying horrible things to me. And then I will respond back in the same fashion. I call it returning the energy. I will return their energy to them in the same way that fits them. And the moment I do exactly what they did to me, all of their friends came out of the woodwork who they didn't know they had. Friends that somehow care for this one man. How dare you say this to him? Huffing and puffing. And I'm like, did you have that same type of attitude when he first commented to me first? Did you go to his page and comment that stuff first? No, it just doesn't make sense to me. I would not be responding if he had showed his horribleness first.
Wow. The pick-me girl identity that you talk about. I'm wondering if you see an aspect of that early self that got wrapped up as a teenager with that older predatory guy. Is that energy of wanting to be chosen? Is that something you saw in that version of your younger self?
100%. And that is, I feel like a lot of young girls, women, we can start off as a pick-me because that's what we were, through our families and through culture, that's what we were groomed to be. Whether it's watered down by the time it's, today's time, it's watered down compared to what it was when I was growing up. So 100%, I wanted to be the one that men wanted, that chose, that no matter how bad they treated me, I'd turn into Stockholm syndrome and stay, because that's what happens, that's exactly what it was. And I hate it. And that's why I'm so anti-pick-me girl now. I'm like, wake the fuck up now before it's too late for you.
It's interesting because fashion and makeup, which are really ultimately expressions of creativity and art and beauty at their core, but they're also reflections of the conditioning that we give to women as a means to get them to be in that posture of being pick-me, i.e. dress this way, make sure your face looks this way, your hair looks just this way, your body, all of those things.
Yeah, all of it.
And so much of that is about serving the male gaze.
That's exactly what it is.
Instead of the brilliance of beauty and creation that goes with it. And one of the things I noticed when I was researching this discussion with you was some work you did at an event which brought nature and natural things into the way that the makeup was done. So there were flower corsages on heads and leaf veins that were done.
Yeah, I remember that. That was a long time ago.
I was, but unfortunately,
you really went back in time.
Well, Google just sent me there. It wasn't hard. I didn't spend a lot of effort, but it struck me at the level of creativity that you brought to makeup, right? And
that was a body painting show. I remember that.
And it was very erotic. There was a few photos in the photo spread on Flickr that I saw that really showed women's bodies and revealed a lot about women's physicality. Mm-hmm. But the way that you had gone into crafting how they were adorned was not misandric. It wasn't capitalizing on the sexuality. It was enhancing natural beauty, which of course has a component of sexual allure to it and eroticism. But is that, did you get to do more work like that? Is that like the only instance?
No, I did a lot of work like that during that time period. So I was really at that time period, I would say like 2013, 2014 is when that was. It was a long time ago. Yeah, it was a long time ago. I used to get hired to do makeup for these like fashion shows in rooftop lounges, high-end rooftop lounges in New York City. And so there'd be these up-and-coming designer that have like little clothing, bathing suits, lingerie, whatever they were designing, dresses. And they would just hire some just like young beginning models. They would hire models and they need some makeup and hair. And so they hired us to do makeup and hair. Wasn't really paid, didn't pay much. It was most about getting like pictures and, showing off your work. So it wasn't really that lucrative, but I wanted it to be lucrative. And I knew that the only reason these shows were happening was because the promoter of the club brought on this designer thinking they can bring a lot of people in. And the more people in, the more people drink, the more money the promoter gets. So I decided to befriend the promoter. And I said, hey, I have an idea. Why don't we do a makeup show? How we do some makeup shows, like really cool body painting or special effects makeup shows, and have a fashion element, but have the fashion element kind of be second to what the makeup is, and make the designer think it was about them, but it was really about me and my team and what we're going to create. And so that really worked really well. And I did that for a couple of years for all of these clubs, but it was a different theme. There would be that one was called Naked Nature. I remember that we did Naked Nature. So fun. We did a pop art body painting show inspired by the work of Roy Lichtenstein. We did a scary Halloween show with like zombies, and we called it Sexy Scary, where there were like skin and flesh falling off, but they were in sexy corsets and fishnets, So it was like, yeah, it was fun. It was a fun time. It was a really fun time. But those shows definitely, because it was a club and there were a lot of men in the club, it really, really attracted the men for that.
It was still on a certain level leveraging the economic value of placing men's desire front and center, and then reaping economic rewards from harvesting that energy. And we see that in beer commercials. We see that in car commercials. There's this aspect of our culture where men's, let's just say it, testosterone and sexual drives are corralled into a purchasing opportunity. And that also contributes to the dissolution of the wholeness of their sense of well-being around having sexual power and sensual natures, right? Because we've been commoditizing it so much and leveraging so much economic activity off it. But at the same time, it's irresistible to an artist like you because it's an outlet. It's a place where you get to actually lean in on your creativity. Are there other things that are present now in your life where you want more creativity, where you really want to express yourself? And is there any plan that you have to kind of craft something new or something like that?
Not in the realms of makeup. Like I don't think you were on when I was talking about this before. For the last, for probably a decade, I've been wanting to shift away from makeup. I was always good at it, and it was the bulk of my income, just not what I wanted to do. I came to New York because I wanted to be on the stage or in front of a camera, and that's what I'm staying with. That's what I'm driving toward now, because I've always been a dancer. I've always performed on the stage. And then when I was younger, still living in California, I used to model when I was like in a very troubled late 90s time. So it was a very hard time, but that it wasn't really into it. It wasn't really what my thing is. But about 4 or 5 years ago, I was scouted via my social media by a small modeling agency who signed me into a 3-year contract. And that was great. And then just last year, I got scouted by an even bigger agency, State Model Management. And that's who I'm with, right? I'm with both agencies still, Dot Model Management and State Model Management. And that is my drive. My goal last year was to be able to do more modeling so I could do less makeup. And so far it is happening. Past year has been pretty good in that scenario because I'm getting really tired of doing makeup. I really am. I'm tired. I have a lot of great clients, but I want to be their friend as opposed to doing their makeup, if at all, I'd rather be getting my makeup done, which is what I'm going to be doing tomorrow. So
Right.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the Netflix television series Emily? Are you familiar with that? It's about a young woman who is making her way in Paris, and she's creating an independent.
Emily in Paris.
Emily in Paris, yeah.
Yeah, the new like the whole new reboot season is coming, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
season 4 just launched. I've been watching it.
Yeah. I haven't seen it yet though, but yeah, I like that. I like that whole show and that whole concept. But that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to manifest some things that I kind of stifled for many years, you know, and I'm trying to just be in front of that camera as much as possible. And one thing that really, really drives me and makes me very happy is that every time I get booked for a modeling gig, for example, like tomorrow, it makes me have this like evil type of laugh underneath, because it makes all those angry little men so upset when they find out that I am literally hired as a model because of my skin, because of the way I look. They fall apart. Their heads blow up. Because in their minds, a model is 22 years old in lingerie on the Victoria's Secret catwalk. That's the only type of model. There's nobody else. And I'm like, do you even watch TV? Every single commercial you see are models. You know, everybody, it's just funny, but they get so upset when they find out that people pay me to be in front of the camera.
I'm wondering, because it's commonly spoken by women who, I think we're all peers here. Like I would say we're in our elder times of our life. Mm-hmm. And it's noted primarily by women that it's difficult because there is this premise of the entertainment world, and that area in front of the camera is for younger women.
That's an old mindset that definitely was a true mindset. That was very true. Go to the 90s and the 2000s modeling era. It was very hard. Everybody had eating disorders. You know, you had to be real skinny. You had to be super young. You had to, you know, all of this different thing. And that was all for the male gaze. That was always for the male gaze. That's how all of those standards were set since it started. But now, because we know that that's not how the world works.
That's awesome.
Women aren't going to buy. That's why Victoria's Secret has changed, because for all of the whole Victoria's Secret, all the stuff was designed by men for men. And I worked at Victoria's Secret as a makeup artist years ago. They had the worst bras. No, women do not like Victoria's Secret bras. They just don't, because they have all this padding to make you have fake boobs up to your neck that they didn't really want. And it's just like foam padding. It's all designed for men, but that has like changed, I guess. And they've started having regular looking, you know, lingerie, regular looking bras. But people of all sizes, all looks are visible, and they are the consumer. So that's why people are, you know, and I'm in the lifestyle department. It is true that if you're modeling, there are different categories in modeling. You have fashion, which are always the youngest girls, the teenagers to their early 20s. And then you age out of that and you can do other stuff. So I'm in the commercial and lifestyle. So I can model until I die, because it's just, I primarily get hired for skincare, beauty, and like travel stuff, or like stuff that goes on in your home. Tomorrow I have a photo shoot with the makeup company El Maquillage for my second time. The second time they hired me, which is amazing. I love it. But I've worked with Black & Decker. I've worked with other skincare companies. I've worked with craftsmen. Like I played like the wife to a man who was working in the garage. Yeah.
Well, like, if you don't mind my saying, you have a very alluring look.
Thank you.
In that look is a maturity as well, which is not what I'm attempting to say is your beauty is, I don't see a hampering. Like if I was a producer in a place of hiring, you would absolutely be a top pick, because
thank you. I appreciate that. I want everybody else to think that too.
Yeah, well, I think they are. I think that's why you're seeing success this past year, because that's
I want more. I want more.
Of course. Well, I hope it comes. I hope it.
So
Go ahead.
Have you explored the possibility of creating a digital entity of yourself so that you could have more jobs? And because one of the things that's occurring in the
digital entity, what do you mean by that?
It's essentially a version of you that it becomes a digital model. Mm-hmm. And then therefore you can be used in California, Oregon, Vegas, Paris, right? And so have you talked about it with your agency? It might be worth asking them, because
No, they have not brought that up to me at all, but I've seen castings for that to use my image, and they can just use me as a model without me even being there.
well, you don't have to give up everything. You can still have one of these tools, and there's licensing conditions. In order to use this tool, you have to agree to these licensing limitations. So it's a way for you, one, to, model yourself literally,
Without
and
me.
then leverage the capacity of being in two places at once, or being available for different types of things, and still have a modicum of control of how your image is used.
Maybe that's not something that I have thought about really at all, maybe in the future. But I know there are a lot of people that are against that type of thing in the industry, because that opens up the door to for actors, you don't even need to be here. We can just get your likeness, and your likeness can do the whole movie,
Right.
So I'd rather do it probably myself. I'd rather be physically at the job doing it, because that's what I enjoy. I enjoy being on the set with the makeup, with the hair. I enjoy that part of it and everything. Like I said, I just wish there was more. For every 20 castings, I get one. I mean, but that's the same for all the other models. I go to a casting. There's this really big casting studio in New York City called Blonde and Company. It's fantastic, but I've been there a billion times, in line with 100 other models. In line just for a 5-minute casting. So, and sometimes I went to a casting for MAC Cosmetics about 3 weeks ago. And they said, okay, if you get the job, you have to keep from September 21st to September 27th open, because we don't know the date yet. So I have to have all that date open. I'm still not going to know if I got this job from 3 weeks ago until the end of this week. So it's just all up in the air, and that always happens. And I just figured that they don't care about your schedule, because they always have other models waiting, and they know that what they're going to pay is going to be probably better than what you would get from some other job. So she'll wait. She'll wait to see if she got it.
Have you thought of going into content producer roles so that you're...
Yeah, actually, I have. I make a lot of content for other companies, because in my agency too, I get hired by companies to make UGC, user-generated content.
Right.
Yeah, so I do a lot of that from home, which I love. That also has helped supplement my income and kept me from walking outside, which I like.
This is what keeps coming to my mind. I'm believing that you and Chris are fans of Last of Us.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, because I did the costume.
Right. So one of the things I love with that story, and that stays with me, is the strength of that young girl, especially the episode with the preacher guy, and she took that motherfucker out like there was no...
I love that.
That was vicious. And I keep thinking to myself, this potential of you creating storylines like that with strong young women and strong female roles, and then you also act in them. Is that something you've given thought of?
Maybe doing both, but I definitely have thought of, in the future, doing a more creative and marketing type of deal, like organizing photo shoots, or even when I'm creating UGC content for other companies, and I'm always in connection with the producer who's giving me all the direction on how they want. And I've even inquired with them before, tell me about your job. How did you get this job? Because if I could just organize all of the shoots at one point and have other people do all this stuff, I'm always looking for those type of outlets. But I think the creative and producing in this field that I'm in is probably the direction I'm going to go in the future.
Okay.
But I'd always prefer to be in front of the camera, always.
Well, do you have a desire to do acting, like fictional acting and stage acting?
I do. I've been having some conversations with some of my friends who do acting. So I grew up in the musical theater, so I've done stage acting, but musical theater acting. So that's Fosse. It's big and dramatic. It's not in front of a TV camera where you have to be normal and subtle. I'm afraid, and on my resting is really big. So I'm gonna, I think this fall, I'm gonna take official beginning acting classes to tone that down. That's what was my plan. I've been having this conversation because I want to do more legit acting that doesn't include singing and dancing around.
Yeah, but to say as a producer or a director, like part of what I'd love is capturing all that fire and energy you have, and there's nothing said, but the viewer gets a sense of that. And
I would like that too.
See, there's a way for you to be big in a camera-based experience.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't have to tone it down necessarily, but the word I would think is calibrate, because that bigness, that vibrance, that electricity, that fire that we experienced as part of our introduction to you through social media is a really great tool for you.
I like that part of it. I don't want to tone that down in my regular life, but I just want to be able to tone it down for different roles. Like I want to be able to hone it in because I have no control. It's always just like that. Yeah. It's just always big. I need some more diversity in my acting abilities.
I'm ready. Have you found the ability to speak bravely in regular street life the way you do on social media?
Yes. There have been occasions. I spoke before at a women's march before. I spoke, in front of a crowd. But I mean, it depends on the situation. When you're in a scary situation, it's hard to be. A lot of times, me and a lot of other women, we tend to fawn, which is, just you come in and you stay silent and you try to get as small as possible so you're not seen. But other times you just have no other choice. I remember there's last summer, I was with my friend. We just come from seeing the Barbie movie, last summer. Mm-hmm. And we were having the best time. We were like discussing the movie, all the we were just having a discussion. And we're walking, and this man, I don't know, it was just some scary man, was walking toward us. And so I kind of like shift us so we can like walk past him, but then he shifted right in front of her, right directly. And then we move to the side and he stays right face to face with her. And she says, "Excuse me, can you please move?" And then he just started to curse at her, just started calling her all of these horrible names. And I never usually do this out in public, but I got so mad, and it was probably because I was trying to protect my friend. It might've been different. It was just me by myself. I always have my taser or my pepper spray like ready to go. And I pulled out my taser and I just ripped into him. I'm like, "Get the fuck away, you piece of trash." I was calling him, he was like probably a vagrant of some sort, drugs, mental illness, something. But in that moment, when you are unsafe from somebody who's posing a threat to you, I said the worst things to him. I'm like, "Go back to your trash can where you belong." And I pulled out my taser. I was cracking the taser, and he was still coming. He was walking toward us the whole time. And we're like, our fronts are to him, but we're walking back, and I'm just yelling at him, and he was coming toward us. And these men, these like construction workers, are sitting there just laughing and watching, not doing anything while this man was charging at us. They charged us. He came all the way into the mall, down to the subway, following us.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. But I was like in his face. I said, "If you come closer, I'm going to fucking tase you." I really wanted the kind of taser that juts out I have to make physical contact with it. But I just wanted to tase him so bad. And when I see those situations, if I tased him, I'd probably start kicking him when I was on the ground. That's probably what would happen. I just protect myself. I don't care what happens after.
There's a lot of rage in there against the injustice you've experienced in the past, isn't there?
Yes, there's a lot of rage. Absolutely, there's a lot of rage.
Yeah.
And who better to take it out on the type of men that still come after you that way?
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's like that young girl in Last of Us.
It feels better when you yell, when you do that, when you release that rage. It feels so much better. It feels so much better and that's what makes me feel so much better online too. When I'm ripping into these guys, I feel better, it just does. And it does take you have to have a really strong, hard personality to be able to handle the kind of like hate that I get from a bunch of men all the time. And in the beginning, of course, it bothers you in the beginning, but then now it's like, please keep coming because you're paying for my charities.
Feed my fire.
I want them to. I'll even, if you can like read through my comments, I will say little jabs at them the way they said it to me. And like, please keep commenting. Please elaborate. Please keep coming back. I'm trying to get you to make you look like an idiot. So,
do you find women also attacking you in a similar manner?
yeah, like I was talking about before, the pick me women,
Right.
They do that, or women that are, that are anti-abortion, the ones that claim to be pro-life, but they're really just a forced birther. A lot of them, why don't you just keep your legs closed? They say those things. I'm like, are you even a fucking woman? Do you know that keeping your legs closed doesn't prevent pregnancy? I mean, it's just ridiculous. Yes, I rip into women a lot. I rip into women who, for no reason, start ripping into other women's looks or who they are as a person. I do that a lot. And then I'll expose them for who they are. I'm like, do you have Vaseline on your mirrors? I do this a lot with men too. Do you have Vaseline on your mirrors? Because you can't see your own reflection. How are you talking about somebody's looks, looking the way you do every single day? I'm like, you must be embarrassed every time you go into your reflection. Like the nerve. Well, they always look the same too. When somebody says something negative about somebody's looks or body, they always look like the crustiest piece of sea scum. It's like.
So I want to ask a question, but I want to acknowledge that my asking this question is somewhat of a transgression.
Okay.
And so I want to ask if it's okay for me to go a little deeper into that edge with you about this.
Sure.
And that if it gets uncomfortable and you feel that it's inappropriate, that I'm willing to take the medicine of whatever that looks like.
Sure.
So the question I have for you is, does being this fiery and allowing the rage to come through and be appropriately directed towards these folks, these men, does that create any kind of deeper arousal for you or a greater sense of excitement around being with your partner?
No, I don't think so. No, I don't think so.
So it doesn't turn you on in that sense?
No, it doesn't turn me on. It makes me feel very satisfied and happy with myself as a person. It makes me feel accomplished. It doesn't turn me on. No, it's not. I'm not. No, definitely not.
And now that I've asked it, how do you feel about me asking you the question?
It doesn't bother me. It didn't bother me. No, I'm pretty. You can ask me a lot of things. I'm pretty cool. And remember, even though I'm fiery, you can look at my TikTok and see video after video after video of me being fiery. But remember, those are just like 1 minute videos.
Right.
So I'm fiery for like, maybe it takes me, if I'm editing a video, 10 minutes. So I'm fiery for 10 minutes. And then I'm like, good the rest of the day. So it's not like I'm just constantly fire. I'm like, in my personal life and then in my TikTok, it's like completely two different. And then if you see my Instagram, not my makeup Instagram, I hardly post on there. I think I just posted something yesterday for the first time since like last Halloween. So I don't really post on there, but my personal Instagram, totally two different people. That's like fashion-y and dancey and models and, fun, uplifting stuff. And then there's my TikTok. So it's like two different people, but I'm more like my Instagram than I am my TikTok. I'm just like that on TikTok for those seconds when I am ripping a man a new one.
Let me ask this. How do you embrace Chris's masculinity?
His masculinity, he's not a toxic man. He's not a bad guy. He's a good guy. He's very, very different. When I met Chris, I was divorcing my ex-husband. Very, very, very different. It was a very different relationship than I've had my entire life, and I had to get used to it. With my ex-husband, I was very much dependent on him for everything, and I felt like I needed, from past relationships with men just needed me to be around them all the time. Like I had to, if I was out somewhere, I have this inner obligation that I had to run home and be there. Like, and that's how I always felt. And that's how I felt like I should be. And Chris is so independent. He's never lived with anybody. I'm the first person he's lived with in his entire life. He owned his own apartment. We own this apartment now. So I knew right away that he was an independent man that knew how to take care of himself. So I wouldn't have to spend so much of my time just taking care of him like he's an adult child. He just did everything himself. And for the first few months, I'm like, is he into me? Is he even into me? Because he wasn't just draping over me at every moment, wanting me to be by his side at every second. I had to come to terms with, no, this is actually how a healthy relationship is. We could have our own personal independent lives, and I can do my own thing without feeling guilty that I'm not home, and he has a million hobbies. He's in the other room doing one of them. He is a builder. He's a programmer for his real job that is not his favorite thing, but he builds things, he crafts things, he remodeled our entire 3-bedroom apartment from top to bottom during the pandemic by himself, knocking out walls, doing tile patterns. He just has a lot of hobbies. And I never have to feel like I need to entertain him or do things, because he has it. And then I can just do whatever I want all the time. And then we come home to each other, and it's so much nicer that way. I don't feel like he guides me, because my ex-husband liked to guide me in ways that he thought I would be successful at, that I should do. And when I would cave into it, I did. I caved into it all the time. But he doesn't do that. He guides me. The way he guides me is just, you do whatever makes you happy and what you're going to flourish in. And what I have done is, I feel like my first couple years with him, I flourished more than I did in my entire relationship with my ex-husband. It was just so quickly, and I don't have these insecurities. He can be where he is, I can be where I am, and we are fine. And I'm good with that.
Do you think potentially the health of that is what allowed you to have this awakening and be able to blossom in your strength? Realize, oh, this thing that happened when I was a teenager was fucked up, that kind of inner explosion. A healthy environment was created with you and Chris for that to explode and blossom.
It did a little bit, because we were together for about a year before we moved in together. We moved in together right before the pandemic, and that actually brought us so much closer. I have a lot of other friends that moved in with their significant other, their boyfriends or girlfriends, and then they broke up. But ours was so close, but we come to know each other so well. I come to know him and his ways, that I just realized that he is a man. He can do what he wants and take care of himself with or without me here. And I feel that knowing that I don't have to do that for him, and I can just concentrate on my stuff, it made us stronger as a couple, and it helped us blossom that way.
Powerful.
Yeah. Do you think there's things that he has, or has he expressed aspects of your changing as a stronger woman that he's appreciating?
Oh yeah, I think so too. He makes funny little jokes every time I get a modeling job. Modeling jobs, when you get a really good one, they pay really well. And he's like, "Oh, that's one more step before I can retire." It's a funny jokes that we play, and I'm like, "I'm trying. If I could, I would totally let you retire and do all your hobbies while I just model away. You could do all that.
That's awesome.
Go fishing and hiking all day long." And that's another thing. We gravitated, and we started sharing the same hobbies that he didn't think that I would be interested in. So I grew up in California. We grew up camping. My family were fishermen. They did all this outdoor stuff. And then when I was with my ex-husband, he wasn't really into all of that, and I never wanted to do all that stuff. So I hadn't done any outdoor activities for many, many years. And then Chris, now he is all outdoor activity. That's all he is. And our first summer together, he was taking me on some hikes and fishing trips out on the kayak in Long Island. And I was just having the best time. And now I'm a total fisherwoman. I have my own pole, I have my own waders, I have all my hiking gear. We do all of this stuff. We travel everywhere to do outdoor adventures together. We went to Colorado to ride through like the Rocky Mountains on bikes. We went to Alaska to hike through the glaciers.
Wow.
We did last year. We have a van. That's another one of his hobbies. He has a Mercedes Sprinter van, a big giant one, and he ripped it apart and customized it to be a fancy livable van. And so he did that last year, and we drove in it 2 weeks through Nova Scotia and Prince Edward Island, which was fantastic, just staying in the van the whole time. And then now the van's even better a year later. And next month we are driving for 2 weeks all the way as far as South Dakota.
Nice.
And we're going to make trips back and hit all these different state parks on the way back. So we're very excited about that. We're very, when we're together and we're doing our shared stuff, that he didn't even think I'd be interested in it. He's like, most girls, they'll try it once and then they don't want to do it again. But we just together all the time. Like we do that all the time. And it's fun. But we are very strong when it comes to doing that. We have a joking personality with each other. We like to mess with each other and funny stuff. And it's very easy. It's very easy. I don't have to feel stressed about being with him, which is good, because I'm used to having an underlying anxiety about my significant other for forever. Like always, there's something, and I'm just like, I chill. I'm from California at heart, so I like to just chill and do nothing for a long period of time.
Nice.
What part of California?
I was raised in the Bay Area. San Jose is where I'm from, and then I moved to Los Angeles for a little bit because I was in a show there dancing when I was like 18. Tough. And then my family moved out of the Bay Area and they moved to the Central Valley. Like Modesto. There's nothing. It's rough. It's rough. I moved home for a little bit and then I came out here for school and never left.
Yeah, for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
Manhattan, Modesto.
I know. It's my whole life is here. I don't ever plan that. Like we're gonna buy a house in the next 5 years in Long Island, and probably rent this one out. But that's the plan. That's the plan.
All right.
Yeah.
Wow. Getting to know you this way is such a rich experience. And Greg and I are so glad that you made time extra to get here. We were inspired by another interview we had with another powerful woman. And
we saw it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's an important thing for men of a certain type to really bring that to the forefront. We all benefit so much from really opening the space up for women to fully become who they really are. And I'm just feel so enriched at being in the space with you, and I wish you all the best. Greg and I have one final question that we have for you typically. Okay. So I'll let him ask the magic question.
Okay, this is the magic question.
Eminem or Foo Fighters?
Oh my God, I like them both. But they're so different genres. It's just, I want to say Eminem, but it's not my answer. I want to say Eminem because I was so attracted to him when I was growing up. I didn't really care about the music very well because I don't really listen to hip hop. But music-wise, I'd have to say Foo Fighters.
All right.
I'd have to say Foo Fighters.
All right.
Because of the music.
That was a solid answer.
I still like Eminem, though, but I still like Eminem.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
So how can people get in touch with you if they wanted to work with you on a project, maybe help hire you as a model or work with you on some content development or some other thing that seems resonant?
So they can reach out on my personal Instagram, which is Vintage Glamour Life with a U, glamour with a U, for those type of inquiries. But if they want to see all of my activist and calling out angry little men, they can go to Vintage Tawni 1. That is, or Vintage Tawni 2.0. That's my backup account. I think that's where you guys found me, on my backup account.
On the backup, okay. And that's on TikTok. Those are both
on TikTok. Yeah, I think that's where you found me. That's Vintage Tawni 2.0, but my main one is Vintage Tawni 1. That's like with 170,000 followers, I think, on that one.
All right.
I will include those in our linkage and our website and all of that, so that people can really get more flavor. Oh, Tawni Michelle, Blessings to you and your loved ones. Good luck with your event tomorrow.
Okay. Thank you.
And stay in touch. We'd love to hear more from you as time unfolds.
Absolutely. Nice to meet you guys.